Good. Trixie.
Right. So I'd like you to prove that to me by repeating after me. Thank you. I won't explain. Thank you. So, a little bit of background. I was born into the anti-colonial movement in Puerto Rico and moved to the States when I was just about to enter my teen years. And that was also happened to be when the shit was hitting the fan. So I grew up around a lot of political struggle. It was the assassination of Fred Hampton that propelled me into activism in my own right. My first flyer, in fact, was for a Panther fundraiser, a pig roast, wouldn't you know? But I really entered activism as a rank and file activist, not as an artist per se, even though I occasionally used that in the context. In the 40-some years since then, I've concluded that there are two kinds of organizing. There's organizing that puts storytelling and stories at the strategic heart of what it takes to make change, and there's organizing that hasn't figured it out yet. Okay? So that's a little provocative, but I do believe that. And part of that, when I work with organizers around that, and we look back at what are the campaigns that have been effective, that you've been a part of, what made them effective, and it turns out even if they weren't thinking in those terms, it's the story that was at the heart of it. Okay? I mean, what did Malcolm X do in his oratory? He traumatized people and helped them learn a different story about themselves, which opened doors to other things. You know, when the people fighting toxins in Louisiana, instead of spewing statistics about child cancer, came up with the phrase "Cancer Alley." It changed the nature of the struggle. Okay, it's art, you know, and that's partly why I get confused about these. How do artists and activists collaborate? Because in my life, they organically grew from the same root. I first learned that you could get in trouble doing art when I had created cartoon characters who were engaging in debates with other workers in the factory I worked in when I was a teenager. So to me, I operate from a healing model. There's a diagnostic question I ask when I work with communities, organizations, unions, and that's what is it that's keeping this group of people from being powerful? Not what external oppression, but what internal one? Where does the story have to be applied? So that these pieces that you see behind me, I consider to be herbs and nutrients. Some of which can raise a fever, some can lower a fever, and deal with the various expressions of trauma. So that means that in the repertoire there are pieces of art that have been used just because it was the right tool at the right moment to win concrete victories on the shop floor in union struggles involving hundreds of workers, and at the other end of the spectrum to begin the process of reawakening community memory in communities that have forgotten their own value and their own history. So it's a wide range. I'll stop with the background there and get on to a particular example I wanted to give, because in thinking about this, I was a little disoriented by the collaboration issue. Again, when we frame it as being between activists and artists. But what I realized is that, in my experience, there's really kind of two ends of the spectrum of collaboration. One is organic and one is contractual. And as time goes on, often those can be blurred. And here's an example of sort of how a rhythm of both contractual and organic arrangements has developed and is still ongoing. This is an open-ended relationship here. And each of those two ends of the spectrum have different realities in terms of questions of accountability, who you're accountable and what the mechanisms of accountability are. So it has to do with my relationship with New Orleans. Your turn. The day that Katrina struck, I created a poster. 2 minutes. Okay, I won't read them, but there's a number of posters. This was widely used, and I just made it out of my own heart. And I felt confident that it would resonate because I know the communities. And this was used widely in organizations. It was used as a way to give awards to firefighter brigades who came down there, construction workers, and so forth. The next one was a dialogue with the People's Hurricane Relief Fund, which they used to organize to publicize the first march from the diaspora back into the city, and was used in many other ways. In fact, when that organization split, who got to keep this as their logo was part of the custody battle. The next one was out of request to broaden the story of the hurricane to cover the entire Gulf, based on a song that Bessie Smith had made popular. And more recently, one that was done after BP, which you can look at afterwards. The short of it is that as a result of organizing, I was part of some organizing weekends training people in cultural organizing in New Orleans, and people from the Day Laborers Congress, the Jornaleros, were present in that, and through that I entered into a contractual relationship which involves working with them over a period of a year, traveling down there to build relationship with the rank and file. They held a large sort of conventional meeting to come up with ideas for how they wanted to express their campaign of the right to remain, which encompasses the jornaleros who were brought in to rebuild the city, and the African-American population that was chased out and brought back, and that they want to exclude, and this is the right to remain with dignity for both of those populations. And so basically that process is one of that I've been going back and forth with the design for the campaign poster, and will be also a process of training them how to build relationships with artists, model how to hold artists accountable, and how to work with internal artists within the campaign to tell their story.
Thank you, Ricardo.
All right.